Chapter 9.3 of A Son Returns. Over the weeks, he told her something of his own struggles. Hers were with the numbness that chilled nerves and muscles. His had been with friendlessness and poverty. 1,000 times he'd been almost defeated. Urged by some inner drive that he had often wondered at, he battled on. He'd sold papers, cleaned furnaces, run pressing machines, washed dishes, mountains of them, and fought his way up through the books and the laboratories, and graduated, and interned. When the chance came to be a doctor at the big piney mills, he'd jumped at it, for it would put him within riding distance of the Hollow. Where can you find cleaner air, finer forests, or more fiercely independent, self-reliant people? Or people more desperately in need of what a man of my training can do? Though I'm running into plenty of hard-nosed opposition, I went to a farm last week where every child of that family, X, is pot-bellied and bow-legged from the lack of milk. Yet with my own hand I destroyed their infected cow. I know, the feces. I said family X. That measure has made me less than welcome in many a cabin. Old ways die hard around here. I sprinkle advice where I can. That family Y, for example, after 12 children in 15 years, knock off for a breather, for which the wife thanked me with her glance. Poppy McLeese, said Corey, promptly. Stop naming my cases. But Corey, too, was lagging in the schedule of progress he had hopefully set up for her. He taxed her about it, fretfully. I'm not satisfied with the way you're doing, young lady. By now you should be taking 40 supported steps. But I do try, doctor. I try and try. One Saturday, when Cady arrived at his office off the store porch, Cole Trevitt was waiting. Leather-skinned, black-browed, Cole lived about as far up Trapper Bald as a man could perch a house. Corn, it was said, could be grown there only by the hoe swinger lashing a rope from his waist to a tree. Cole, like all the Trevitts, lived chiefly by rod and rifle. After some years of lone holing up, he had married a girl from a cabin far up Big Piney. By nature, he was a closed-mouthed man. His schooling had not included manners. Doc, can you come to my shack right away? What's the trouble? Vonnie. His voice was rough with urgency and worry. Doc, if she dies, you'll settle with me. Isn't that threat out of place? You shut up and come. Cady remounted his tired horse. Trapper Bald lay high above Fitchville Cap, as far from Toller Store as a man could dwell and still be in that trading area. The ride seemed endless. The slab and log structure was hung on the edge of a breathtaking view, but scorned glass windows. A tight-stretched bobcat skin over a single square hole let in light. Vonnie Trevitt, the former Vonnie Peters, who had so stirred Felt Annabelle, was appallingly young. A child wife with dish-blue eyes that were now filled with pain and stark fright. Her hair, the color of pearwood shavings, must have been pretty when bound and cared for. Now it was unbrushed and strewn about. In brief time, Cady knew. The child wife, all unready for motherhood, had evidently just made the discovery that motherhood was swiftly making ready for her. He drew Cole aside. You're going to need help with this when the time comes. Is Belle Gunderson your nearest woman neighbor? Ride there and tell her to be prepared to come and stay for some time if needed. Yes, Doc. But why does Vonnie take it like this? All she does is cry. Up to a spell ago, she was as chipper and as lively as a banjo with 5 strings. All banjo tunes aren't jigs, Cole. While Cole Trevitt was gone, he aired and cleaned the hut, boiled every household tool and utensil, and wished fervently that this girl could have a skilled nurse, instead of the good-natured but slovenly Belle. The pair arrived, and he gave Belle her instructions. Riding away, he thought to himself of Cole. There's a man who's meant to be a decent husband, loving father. But he's a trapper, and he forgot that for a girl so young, marriage can be just that, a trap. After a number of wide-spaced calls, he turned in at the Beckett place. Corey was in her chair. She greeted him cheerfully as always. She rose and took her steps, right leg stiff, left foot scraping, arms at her sides poker straight. He caught her hands as she tottered. Not on tiptoes, young lady. Down on your feet. They won't go that way. They will if you command it, and let your arms go loose and try not to jerk your head like a pecking chicken. She made awkward efforts and they both laughed. She tired and had to sit. Who have you seen today, doctor? A girl you don't know. She lives up on a mountain. And you're worried about her? I'll simply say it's a young woman whose surroundings are totally unfit for the ordeal before her, and whose hour may come when I'm not available. And if anything goes wrong, I am concerned for what it may do to a defeated and unforgiving rival. These mountains have seen enough gunplay. Also, but secondarily, I'll be the man in the middle. Doctor, you come here only to do good. All of us know that. I have to carry on the battle with pretty dull weapons. There wasn't a microscope, x-ray, or clinical thermometer in the whole district until my coming. And there still isn't a refrigerator with vaccines, serums, and antitoxins. There isn't even a telephone. Silver Moon Annabelle is my prize nurse, and that young Lazarus Pulaski is going to be a surgeon someday if I know my keenness and talent. In spite of his being one-handed. But what are they? 2 youngsters, and my only helpers. Cady, don't give up and leave us. I'll keep on until I've succeeded in my original project, which is to have you walking, dear. It was the first time she'd called him Cady, the first time he'd responded quite that way. He left curiously exalted. Heads broken in fights, arms and legs hurt by saws and flying timber, kept him at the mills for 2 weeks without let up. When he rode for the hollow again, the maples were massive, yellow and crimson. It was fall. Where Little Piney cut the path, with dwindled froth and clamor, a group of men waited. Just a minute, Doc. Cole Trevitt, feet apart, barred the way. Certainly, Cole. Do you wish to consult me here? Cole's face was flint. She's dead. Cady was shocked. I'm deeply sorry, Cole. You should have been there. What good is a doc if he's sky-hooting off somewhere else when he's needed? You left it all to Bell's dosing and poking. A voice encouraged. Lay into him, Cole. The ring of hostile faces angered Cady. Cole's feelings he could understand, but not this general malice. It seemed well to let the situation boil over and be done with. Go ahead, Cole. Get it off your chest. It would have been a son. I wanted a son. Maybe she was just too young for marriage and motherhood, Cole. It all came to her too suddenly. You should have saved her. There was no use arguing with a man in this mood. Cady swung to the others. Each of you looks as if he has a squawk. Out with it. Cole's been through enough. Don't leave this all on him. We don't cotton to you, Doc. You don't belong here. You make trouble. Godlove Cornet put in. It's a long bill, Doc, urged Cady. Godlove, talk for the crowd. Well, a sight of things have gone wrong since you poked your nose among us. Comp Hewitt don't like that sign you slapped on his gate. He says no man can tell him when he comes and goes. He yanked it off. Nobody likes scarlet fever either, so we haven't seen the end of that. What's next? You told Logan McLeese that his woman they should cut down on babies for a spell. They've been fighting ever since. Poppy's won the fight, and Logan says he's now a Roman man, parish and dangerous to widders. What kind of advice was that to give an elder of the church? Uncle Tate Trevitt added his toot. You cost me my winter's pork. You sick Marilla Lee into putting Gid to work, and all the women are clacking about it and laying into their men. You give Herbert Hardy a shot of something when he nailed his foot, and he came down with hives. Godlove Cornet tapped Cady on the knee. Folks think you don't know doctrine from straight up. How can a peeler be so smart, they ask. And who wouldn't be just as alive if they'd swallowed lard and red pepper or cherry bark bitters and a grain of whiskey? Added felt Annabel. Even Corey Beckett. What have you done for her? Yes, when's she gonna walk? Jeered several. So that's it, said Cady. Ordinary hard work by a fellow who studied his medicine isn't enough. When I come back, every sick man must leap up and do a hoedown. The dead must rise, the blind must see. Well, I'm not a very good magician. I can do just so much riding about in any weather, catching sleep in the saddle, and I see it isn't enough. All at once he felt exhausted. These trips on top of his regular duties had drained his strength. I thought I sort of belonged among you and could help a little, but maybe I'm not the right man to play spearhead to modern medicine and surgery and public health and sanitation. I'll think it over and give you my answer on where I stand about this. Now, if you'll make way, I'll be on about present business. They let him pass, a tired, dejected man on a tired, spiritless horse. I've shoved back death here and there and softened pain, he told himself. I've swept up disease and let light into a few dark corners. But protesting at pollutions and killing tuberculin-positive cows doesn't build up confidence. If I could only have pointed to one solid earned achievement. He tied his horse to the palings before the Beckett house and went under the rose bays and quinces, the latter now heavy with fruit. The front door stood open, as on that first day. As then, no one answered his halloo. He went around to the side porch. The bed was open to the sun, but Corey wasn't in it. She wasn't in her chair either. It stood idly by. Someone was on a bench in the garden. At first he thought it was Corey's mother, but then he saw it was Granny Height. She had come calling and, like him, found nobody in the house. Granny said, "Corey's at the back, Cady, by the creek." "But her chair's here." Granny viewed him chidingly. "Cady Peeler, for a bright young man, you're the dullest I ever see. You mean she walked there?" "Corey has been walking that path to the creek for 2 months." Unable to believe his ears, Cady ran down the path for the little glade by the run. Corey was treading its level grass. She placed her feet firmly, if slowly, not on toes, as if falling, but on the whole of her planted soles. Her left foot scraped, but her right leg wasn't a poker. Its knee was hinged. "Corey!" That did it. She dropped swiftly to a log. She looked up, panicked. "Corey, what does this mean?" She didn't answer. "Why wasn't I told?" Her eyes, by brave effort, didn't answer. "You said you'd keep on coming to the hollow until I could walk." He tried to reason that out to himself. He caught a fragment of the truth. It bewildered him. She said matter-of-factly, "Well, now I suppose you'll go." "You don't want me to go?" There were their eyes, joining again. "You were sure, Corey, that I'd feel that my job was done?" She asked steadily. "Isn't it? With me, I mean. And the hollow is down on you, and you're worn out." He dropped to the log beside her. He took her hand. For a time he held it, feeling its strength pick up, feeling courage and power and renewed zest for struggle flow into him like a surge from a full, deep river. The limitlessness, the splendor of things ahead. Corey. Oh, Cady. The Whittlers on the store porch looked up in surprise when Cady Peeler rode into their view that day. He dismounted briskly, hitched his horse, and sprang up the steps. "There was some discussion on the mountain of my future intentions here. I'll now state what they are. You, Ob Hardy, will move that buck and railer back from the stream and build a screen around it if I have to bat your head against a tree. You, Godlove, will steer home and start pegging shoes for your children, or I'll name 6 to escort you on a springy rail." I ask the others of you to go at once and sweep the schoolhouse because Corey Beckett is now able to walk, and she desires to start classes there. He let that sink in. She's always wanted to be teacher here, and she expects all children to attend for at least 6 months a year. And there will be classes for the grown-ups too on moonlit nights when folks can see the trails. He unlocked his office. Dispensary's open. Silence followed. Tatum Trivett broke it. You say Corey walks? Uncle Tate, she does. As Cady approached the store today, 6 months later, the porch again was filled. Dr. Peeler, Cady, would you haul on this tooth? Doc, my back's out of kilter. If you'd maybe give it a good hard wrench. Doctor, would you take a look at these young ones now? Not an itch nor blister anywhere. Doc, is it all right with you if Poppy and me start a 13th? She's for it. Cady unlocked his office. Scents, aseptic, astringent, and cathartic, flowed out. They were his version of friendship jars for the hollow. Who's here first with the worst trouble? He selected a victim. Lazarus, you better stand beside me and watch this. You're going to take my place someday. He closed the door.